If you have an Ether and you want it to be valuable, then you have to act in ways that bring value to the network.
Welcome to Layer Zero. Layer Zero is a podcast of unscripted conversations with the people that make up the Ethereum community. Crypto is built by code, but is composed of people, and each individual member of the crypto community has their own story to tell. Cypherpunks understood that the code they write impacts the people that use it, and Layer Zero focuses on the people behind the code, because Ethereum is people all the way down, and it always has been. Today on Layer Zero, I'm talking with Superphiz, and Superphiz is a community member of a number of different parts of the Ethereum community: the EthFinance subreddit, the Rocket Pool community, the ETH staking community. He's just fascinated by ETH staking, and so I would call him an ETH staking expert, although he probably wouldn't like that expert title. He's just a community member through and through, and living and breathing and dying for decentralized protocols. And Superphiz is worried at this present moment. He calls Ethereum under attack. And so what is Ethereum under attack by? This is the conversation of liquid staking derivatives, which has been a very significant conversation in the Ethereum space lately, and how liquid staking derivatives, things like tokenized staked ETH tokens, like staked ETH from Lido, ETH from Rocket Pool. We talk about the conversation of how liquid staking derivatives might come to centralize Ethereum and what we can do about that. And so this is if you guys are looking to learn more about that conversation, this is a great place to get started. We also talk about other things like how Superphiz got started with Bitcoin. Even before getting into Ethereum, we got started with Bitcoin, and how he felt that the Bitcoin community let him down, and the lessons that he has learned from that era of his life and how he has applied that forward to Ethereum. So I hope you guys enjoyed this fantastic interview with Superphiz from Rocket Pool, from EthFinance, from the ETH stakers, right after we get to some of these fantastic sponsors that make the show possible. Rocket Pool is your friendly, decentralized Ethereum staking protocol. You can stake your ETH with Rocket Pool and get ETH in return, allowing you to stake your ETH and use it in DeFi at the same time. You can get 4% on your ETH by staking it with Rocket Pool, but you can get even more by running a node. Rocket Pool is the only staking provider that allows anyone to permissionlessly join their network of validating nodes. Running a Rocket Pool node is easier to set up than running a solo node, and you only need 16 ETH to get started. Why would you do this? You get an extra 15% staking commission on the pooled ETH, so your APY is boosted. So if you're bullish ETH staking, you can increase your APY and get some extra tokens by adding your node to the decentralized Rocket Pool network, which currently has over 1,000 independent validators. It's yield farming, but with Ethereum nodes. You can get started at rocketpool.net and also join the Rocket Pool community in their Discord. You can find me hanging out there sometimes in the chat, so I'll see you there. MakerDAO is the OG DeFi protocol. The MakerDAO produces DAI, the industry's most battle-tested and resilient stablecoin. Using Maker, you don't need to sell your collateral if you need liquidity. Instead, you can spin up a Maker vault and use your collateral to mint DAI directly. With Maker, the power to mint new money is in your hands. The Maker protocol is extremely hardened and operated by one of the most experienced DAOs in existence. They've been here since the beginning, they've seen it all, and so you can mint DAI with the assurance that your collateral is safe. Soon, Maker will be present on all chains and L2s, so minting DAI can take place on Oasis.app, Zerion, Zapper, or any other DeFi protocol that you use. Follow Maker on Twitter @MakerDAO and learn from the oldest and most resilient DAO in existence. AAVE is the leading decentralized liquidity protocol, and now AAVE v3 is here. AAVE v3 has powerful new features to enable you to get the most out of DeFi, including isolation mode, which allows for many more markets to be launched with more exotic collateral types, and also efficiency mode, which allows for higher loan-to-value ratios, and of course, portals, allowing users to port their AAVE position across all of the networks that AAVE operates on, like Polygon, Phantom, Avalanche, ARBITRUM, Optimism, and Harmony. The beautiful thing about AAVE is that it's completely open source, decentralized, and governed by its community, enabling a truly bankless future for us all. To get your first crypto collateralized loan, get started at aave.com. That's AAVE.com. And also check out the AAVE protocol governance forums to see what more than 100,000 DAO members are all raving about at governance.aave.com. What's up, Superphiz? How's it going?
Hey, how are you, David?
Good, really good, man. The EthFinance and Rocket Pool communities are really stoked to have you on here, which makes me stoked.
Yeah, so I mean, those are my people. That's where I live. You know, I've been an Ethereum or an EthFinance guy for since day one, and ETH trader before that, and ETH mining before that, and Ethereum before that. So I really feel comfortable with those communities, and I'm really glad that they like me. That matters. Does it matter? It does. I mean, it's important.
Before we were talking about the show before this, but before we go any further, you sweating, bro?
Yeah, so I make no secret. Like I do this regimen. Like I have like peak Phiz performance because normally
Fizz
I'm a slug, and so if I know I'm going to do something like this, if it's like a launch call or if it's an opportunity to speak, then like maybe a couple hours before I'll take a nap and then I'll get up and go for a really hard run, and then I will snag the forbidden coffee. Uh, and it kind of lets me like uh, be my favorite self. So this is you're gonna get my favorite self. I hope.
So you're telling me that this is what peak performance looks like?
Yeah, it's sad. Like this is all like you think. I know, right? Like oh, so my I have a goal that I'm not going to use foul language during a recording because I've learned the value of family-friendly media. Like, I really want this to be something that anyone can play anywhere and feel comfortable playing with it. So I was going to make a joke and say I'm not going to say.
Right. I definitely got in trouble for having a potty mouth on the weekly roll up, so now I try and keep it contained. But sometimes I let it out regardless. All right, so Phiz, I went to the EthFinance subreddit where you basically live, as far as I can tell, and told them that you're coming on Bankless, and so they should drop some questions. So I got a bunch of questions from your friends and family over at EthFinance, and so I also have my own questions, but I kind of want to start with theirs. So this first one I think is also the question I would have asked anyways, coming from Mazwanos. What drives you to be so involved in Ethereum's decentralization?
I've been a part of failed networks. I've been a part of other L1s that allowed themselves to be captured or followed the wrong goals or drank their own Kool-Aid and sold out on their core principles. And as someone who's been involved with Ethereum for a long time, I've grown to this place where I don't want that to happen to Ethereum. Like I want Ethereum to survive, and it's something that I'm willing to put energy into. Like it's that valuable to me. So whatever it takes, like whatever I need to do to organize the community, to empower people, to educate people, then I'm going to do what I can to help Ethereum be successful.
What L1s were you a part of before you became part of the Ethereum community?
I affectionately call it Blockstream coin, or Grandpa. I'm one of those people. I don't like to give too much name credit to things that I'm not deeply involved with or aligned with. But there was another cryptocurrency. I think it was founded in about 2008 or 2009, and
is it proof of
it
work?
was all the rage for a while. It is. It's a proof of work chain. I think it still exists. I'm not really sure. I haven't heard much about it lately.
Really slow block times.
Yeah, but
I know these types.
Have you heard of this one? I loved that network, but I realized first that the community wasn't always sour. The community became sour, and the chain became captured by people who were not aligned with the decentralization ethos. I mourn the loss of that project. It's funny, a lot of people don't even know it's dead, but I mourn the loss of it, and I like Ethereum enough that I don't want to stand by and let the same thing happen again.
Were you on the subreddit during the early days of said particular chain, where a lot of that, because it went through a fork in the road where it could have stayed community aligned, or it could have gotten captured by Schmuck Shmeem.
I actually have. I have a post that I absolutely love. It's from the time that I left that kind of recounted. There are like 16 events that led up to I love you guys, but I'm leaving. And I was a careful observer, the same way that I'm involved with Ethereum, and there were just so many atrocities, such a sour community. It's not. it went beyond moderating, and it got into shaping an agenda, shaping a narrative
Psyops?
that it's just so unhealthy.
Psyops? Would you say psyops?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It could have been avoided. It didn't have to. That chain could be healthy and vibrant. It could be a good partner chain for Ethereum today, but right now it's essentially a shell of its former self, and the only people uh, who still hold it in high regard are the people who don't know the reality behind it.
Is there a future of Ethereum where Ethereum becomes the chain that you shall not name? And how do we prevent that from happening?
I feel like I have a close enough relationship with Ethereum. God, what is this? I'm dating Ethereum now. Which, I'll never. Ethereum will never be the chain that I don't mention, but I do hope that it never becomes a cautionary tale. There's a reason I was excited to be on your show today, and it's to draw attention to the fact that, for better or worse, Ethereum is under attack right now. The beacon chain is under attack, and it's a thing we don't want to talk about. People know me as a happy guy, like they think, oh, Phiz just wants to sing Kumbaya all day long. But we're under attack, and I'm not the kind of guy who is going to say, these are the attackers. Everybody get them. I don't subscribe to that. I think the attackers in this case are probably non-malicious. I think that they are probably they see themselves as responsible actors on the network. But the role of the community in these cases is really to stand up for the network and say, wait, stop. This this is not what's supposed to happen. And some of the things I want to talk about today are the responsibility of the community of layer 0, to stepping up and fighting for the network if they believe it's something they want to be around in 20 years, because I want it to be around in 20 years.
I think a way to put a name on the attacker is to call this attacker Moloch. Like, it seems like it's a Moloch attack, right? Like,
it is.
It's a failure of coordination, and it's a failure of it's an attack on poor human incentives. And for those that don't know the Moloch reference, Moloch is basically the god of human coordination failures. There's some articles on Bankless in a previous podcast, but it's basically symbolized in the sense that, like, if everyone agrees to do this one thing and abide by this one shared standard, you actually increase the incentive to defect from that. And ultimately, because that one person or one entity can defect, it makes the whole thing break down. So Superphiz, to say that, like, for the newer listener, or for the people that just haven't dove as deep into the world of crypto or don't have the long history, to say that the aforementioned chain, it's the most obvious chain. I'm just going to play into the game of not mentioning it, but it's the most obvious chain for those that haven't gotten it yet. To say that chain is broken, and then also to say Ethereum is under attack, is like really strong language. So before we go into the details of just like how to save Ethereum from a Moloch attack, why just use why lean into just this whole like very bold statements of just like the OG chain is dead, Ethereum is under attack. Like, these are big words.
Yeah, I'm not here on your show to get views. I'm not trying to sell a message. I'm a harbinger. I'm sharing the message as I see it on the chain. Actually, as I see it in the community, to be honest, because this is not a chain message. This is a community message. In regard to Blockstream chain, that's a personal choice. That I take full credit for my attitudes toward that chain. It's a chain relationship that I had that I separated from. But when it comes to Ethereum, it's not my message. It's not, hey everybody, Superphiz is doing this thing. I work hard to listen and represent the needs of the beacon chain. If I don't know, I call myself the beacon chain community health consultant. I take that seriously. And so I am the guy like literally looking at the chain every day and saying, what are we doing right and what's not working? The job of the developers, of the researchers, they're building the tip of the spear, and I'm sort of here in the background looking at over at everything, looking at the community and saying, how are we doing? And we've reached this point where we have meandered into a crisis, and if we don't take community action to correct the crisis, then I sincerely believe that I don't think it's going to be the end of the chain, but if Moloch crosses over 33%, I think that we will see. I think we'll see some effects. I think that rational sellers will look at, or rational participants will look at other chains. I think that we'll have set a precedent that it's okay to try to monopolize the network. But yeah, as you say, it's a failure of coordination. It's something that we can avoid. It's something that now is the right time for us to fight for what's right.
Okay, so let's go ahead and make things explicit, because I think people from the Rocket Pool and people from the our EthFinance communities definitely know what you're talking about, but I think many others might not.
Okay.
What's at stake here? What do we need to fix? What's going wrong?
So the essential issue is the beacon chain runs on validators, and validators represent a 32 ether deposit in the chain, and then a responsibility to validate the beacon chain at regular intervals. And so people mostly know staking as a form of making essentially passive income on the beacon chain. Beacon chain being the next iteration of the proof of stake chain for Ethereum. It's what we're moving to around August, hopefully.
Right, the beacon chain is future Ethereum.
That's right, and it is essentially imminent at this point. And so on this beacon chain, we have about 300,000 validators, and ideally, these validators represent individuals. So maybe I run a validator in my home, maybe you run in one in your home. Our friends have them, and we are decentralizing and supporting the network. But what happens is people, I guess, I don't mean this in an unkind way, people seek a herd mentality. They look for an easier way to do things. They say, I don't want to run the hardware on my own, or I don't have 32 ether, or it's too much work, but here's an easier way to do it. If I give my ether to these people, even Rocket Pool, if I give my money to Rocket Pool, they'll stake on my behalf, and I don't have to worry as much, but I'm still getting paid. And that mental transaction is sort of where things break down, because I think as ether holders, if we value our ether, if we value the future of the network, we have this deep responsibility to be good stewards of our ether. And so if we're just value extractive and we're like, hey, how much can I make from this? Then we're going to give our ether anywhere, and it doesn't matter. But if we take the health of the network seriously, we're going to look around and say, what is the landscape of validating? How can I use my ether to defend, support, protect, and enhance the network? And so ideally, when you're staking any ether, if you're staking 1/10 of an ether, you're going to look at all the providers and you're going to say, I don't have 32 ether, but I want to stake. So there are these 1, 2, 3 providers. And you're going to find, if you do that one of these providers right now has about 32.45% of the validators. That's essentially 100,000 validators, or a third of the network. If they cross over 1/3 of the network, they then have the ability as a governor to censor the network. They can prevent finalization. They can say, we're going to hold the network hostage until you do what we want. From the flip side of that, this entity, I don't believe they're evil. So I don't think that they intend to do that. I think that they see themselves as the benevolent leader. Like, we're shepherding the network. We're trying to take care of everyone. There are so many people who want to deposit and make returns on their Ether. We're just trying to help them do that. But the flaw in that logic is that staking on the beacon chain isn't inherently about making money. It's inherently about securing the chain. And if you put that financial goal ahead of the responsibility, then you have this kind of mutated incentive profile.
And so the Moloch attack here is coming from, hey, I'm going to let everyone else run their own nodes, and I'm just going to delegate my ETH to somebody else. And so this is the classic Moloch trap where, well, if everyone delegates their ETH to someone else, then basically we burn the system down in the first place. And so only a very few or a small percentage of people can safely delegate their ETH to others to stake on the network, and it needs to be significantly smaller than those that are actually staking their nodes and staking their ETH and running their nodes at home. And so that proportion of like independent node runners versus delegators needs to be strong in the independent node runner sides. And so part of the reason why you're saying you don't think they're evil is that, look, this could be anyone, right? Like, we could solve this problem on this particular staking as a service platform, but then just like Moloch, that as we used on Bankless so many times before, like, you don't actually kill Moloch, you end up just pushing him elsewhere. And so it couldn't turn into like a whack-a-mole problem where, well, if people continue to delegate their ETH rather than run their nodes, like, you're just pushing Moloch in a different direction. And so like we can hit every single staking as a service provider on the head and say, well, no, like, clamp down on this, and then it just goes to another one, and then we do it again. We actually haven't solved the problem, which is why you reference layer 0 and why I think I see a "we are layer 0" piece of sheet of paper in your background, if that's what I'm reading correctly. It's a little bit blurry.
I'm not sure if that camera angle can get it, but yeah. A friend of mine is like, hey, I want to sponsor your layer 0 work. Wait, if you'll put this up, I'll send sponsorship your way. And I was like, that's like a win. Yeah, let's do it. I truly feel like layer 1 is not the base of the chain. I get this thing. I get DMs like, Phiz, you're wasting your time. None of this matters. As a matter of fact, when I first advertised myself as the Beacon Chain Community Health Consultant, leaders in Ethereum sort of discounted me. They're like, the community is cool, but you guys are really just a bunch of people hanging around in a forum. And I know differently. I know that layer 0 is a formidable army. We are the farmers who go about our daily work until our network is threatened, and then we take up arms and we defend our network. And so I can allow people to not understand the strength of layer 0 until there's an attack. And when there's an attack, that's when, it's time to summon everyone and say, hey guys, hey, people who are using this service and you didn't know that you were harming the network, it's time to activate. Let's wake up. Let's take responsibility for our actions. Let's come together. Let's protect the network. And then when we're done, we can move on to something else.
So it's a very, very important to indoctrinate like a culture of node running in every single decentralized chain. And so is that the solution that you are looking for? Is you are just looking to change the culture around node running in Ethereum? Or are there like other solutions towards solving this whole, like, no one should ever cross 33.3% of stake supply?
One of my favorite things about being Superphiz is I don't have to know all the answers. I get to look you or anyone in the eye and say, I don't know. And I'm okay with that because it's not my job to know the answers. So, the way that I envision the network is, to be honest, it's things like schools and hospitals and local community governments setting up validators and running nodes to support local infrastructure. I see it as individuals running nodes at home. I see, I see for people who don't have 32 Ether, they're using. You've heard this 1,000 times. Trustless, decentralized, open source, and permissionless providers like Rocket Pool. Not just Rocket Pool; it's the first. But we need 10 Rocket Pools. And that gives people the opportunity who's like, I only have 0.01 ETH, but I want to fight for our network. How do I do this? And then you participate in one of these staking solutions that promotes network decentralization. So I've said this before, but I see staking on the Ethereum network as a thin layer of validators around the world. And right now, what we have are a few very concentrated regions. It's something we can work. I want to point out ethsunshine.com, developed by Hani Abu. It's a decentralization dashboard that sort of it doesn't paint a pretty picture, but it definitely lays out the work ahead of us.
So the image that I'm kind of getting in my head is that like there's all these staking as a service providers, and there's also many more working that have not been that haven't been released yet. Some are in beta, some are just kind of working behind the scenes. Then there are ones that are live, and it kind of reminds me of like the whole curve wars thing, where the curve wars are like they're trying to bribe people to join their side, right? To join their governance weight, or just like direct the curve emissions towards their pool, right? And so like the curve wars are trying to fight over the emissions of CRV, and then the staking as a service providers are trying to fight over their share of staking rewards. And every single staking as a service provider takes their fee, right? And so if they have more TVL, more assets under management under their pool, they get a larger fee structure, and that's the bull case for every single staking as a service provider. And this is keeping Ethereum decentralized versus like competition, right? Bitcoiners love to say that Bitcoin is always decentralized because even the biggest proof of work whiners will ultimately decay, just because that's what proof of work hardware does. I don't really buy into that, but like you could kind of allude to the same thing going with Ethereum security, where just like the best proof of stake security provider will win. The one with the most uptimes, the one with the cheapest fees, they will attract the most TVL, and then they win because of sheer competition. But what doesn't win is the Ethereum chain. The staking as a service provider wins, but what loses is the whole staking as a service or the whole Ethereum chain in the first place, because if one proof of stake provider wins the race, and in the same way where CVX, Convex Finance, won the curve wars, and now it's basically a convex finance wars. If that happened in Ethereum, and just like staking as a service provider ABC wins the ETH staking game, Ethereum as a whole entire ecosystem loses. And now we don't really have a game to play anymore. So that is where that metaphor breaks down. Phiz, is this even possible? How do we prevent? Like, is this a possible future to prevent?
Yeah. So what you said makes so much sense, because if you think about the most efficient design to run Ethereum validators, it's putting them all in one place. Let's centralize them. Let's
just
find
make a database.
That's right. Yeah. And the funny thing is, as obviously incorrect as that seems, people tend toward it. People tend toward that herd mentality. So it's definitely possible for us to work through layer 0 to coordinate to further decentralize the network. And it's something that we'll have to continue doing forever. I get so many comments from people who say, Phiz, how long are we going to have to do this? Forever. It's never going to end. We don't develop a piece of software and upload it to GitHub and suddenly the network is decentralized. Decentralization is the role and responsibility of holders. If you have an ether and you want it to be valuable, then you have to act in ways that bring value to the network.
And so I think this will bring me to my second question from the EthFinance community. And I'll lead into it with this. Bitcoiners like to say that don't trust verify, or basically just remove all human governance and just replace with math. For example, everything that we can replace with math should be replaced with math. And if you're telling me that like we're going to have to fight this layer 0 fight forever, that sounds like an uphill battle. And one of the reasons why this crypto world works is that we've actually been able to replace uphill battles of the old world and replace them with downhill battles of the new world. And so Logris the Bard, his first question is, how can we economically incentivize a 22% soft cap of any given staking network? What incentives can be marshaled to incentivize staking networks to voluntarily cap themselves? What economic penalties can be applied to staking networks who grow too large? Any thoughts on these questions?
Yeah, I have a great thought. Logri is 6 times smarter than I am, so I can't wait to see what he comes up with. David, I let myself not have all the answers. I'm not some shaman who's like laying out the path forward for everyone. I'm a member of the community who recognizes that we have an opportunity for growth, and so I don't want people to look at me for the answers. I don't want to be a leader. I want to be a part of a movement that makes Ethereum stronger. So when someone like Logri asks a question, hey Phiz, what do I do? I am literally going to say, I don't know, Logri, what do we do? Because there are so many people in the community who know hundreds of times more than I do. I'm a school psychologist. Like, I'm a counselor. I don't know crap about economic structures. I know how communities work. I know how to de-escalate conflict between middle schoolers really well. But when you get into complex economic concepts or developer concepts, then I'm very okay saying there are other people in the community who are more able to address those questions than I am. It's funny because I responded that it wasn't a joke. Like, I'm okay being normal. I can normalize who I am. I don't have to have all the answers.
And so, okay, so you're really leading into, you are just like sounding the horn. You're the Paul Revere who are saying the British are coming, but you're not necessarily, you don't actually know like how to strategize an army here, other than just.
To be honest, I don't even want to be Paul Revere. I'm doing a job that has to be done. I'm doing something that I wish someone else would do. I don't want to do this. I want to trade NFTs and lose money on them. But when
I got a question on that later, actually.
Yeah, when I see a network that I value in trouble, then I'm going to give everything I have as a counselor to save it. And I don't want to be Paul Revere. I want to just be a participant in a larger thing.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate for a second. And so there's in the 2021 we saw this growth of just like anti-ETH maxis in the crypto world. I'll name some names, even though you don't have to. Like the Solana communities, the Avalanche communities, the formerly Terra communities. There's a newsletter out there that is titled, or it's not in the title, but it's like in the tagline as to why you should subscribe. It's titled "No ETH Maxis," and so like there's this growing cohort of just like no ETH maxis out there. And ironically, the guy who runs that newsletter got the idea from me on our Kobe podcast when I was like, other people need to make other content for other ecosystems, not Bankless, not come crying to Bankless. That's why we don't talk about you guys. Anyways, I'm off on a sidetrack. The point is that like all of those like don't be ETH maxis, don't be a Bitcoin maxi like line. I'm willing to bet all of my ETH that as soon as like that one particular community, whatever that one community is, like were to flip Ethereum in market cap, they would just become like the new maxis, right? They would become the new Avalanche maxis. And so applying, and just because like any underdog is like, don't be a maximalist, accept our chain. And then as soon as they're the upper dog, as soon as they're on top, they just turn into the new maxis, right? And so like, it's really just a strategy of where you are in the dominance, stack, right? And so Rocket Pool being having lesser TVL than the alternative staking pools, do you believe that the Rocket Pool community has it in them to, if they were the ones that were at 32% of the stake and the RPL token was like 10x the price and they're all like super wealthy and happy, do you think they would also be ready to sound the alarm and cut back against their own interests, right? Like, does the Rocket Pool community have the layer 0 to protect Ethereum?
In some ways, I feel like it's a loaded question because, I'm a member of the Rocket Pool community and I've spent a lot of time in my own way cultivating that community to hold what I consider to be the highest interests of Ethereum. And so I know that many leaders in the Rocket Pool community have committed to my suggestion of 22% capping, and then Vitalik followed that with a 15% cap. I also know Stakewise has voluntarily offered to cap at 22%. I think it's easier when you're the underdog to say, if we get that big, yes, because it's sort of. It's a feather in your cap. It's a promotional. It's harder for that community who's already there to say, okay, we'll turn it off. We'll stop taking money, sure. But Rocket Pool, in my mind, is aligned with the fundamental ethos of Ethereum. It is decentralized, permissionless. God, I don't want to say those things over again because it sounds so packaged. But it's one of those things where I align with a community because they're doing Ethereum the way that I believe Ethereum should be done. And if they reach that threshold, if they didn't throttle, then I would walk away. In the same way, honestly, that I would have to look for other. I don't think another chain exists, but if Ethereum was captured, I would say, God, I hope something else comes along. I hope something else, is better. Can I circle back to this Maxi conversation?
Sure. Yeah.
We've entered this culture where we've sort of become an anti-Maxi culture. And I'm even hesitant to call myself an ETH Maxi, but I am right now. If something changes in Ethereum, then I may become a Maxi for another chain. But what I really like to see are people who have a wallet balance that is really based on one chain. If you're a Solana Maxi or a Algorand Maxi, Cardano, like, believe something and work to make that better. And when you believe that thing has failed, look for something else. But what I don't have a lot of respect for are people who maybe play the top 10 on CoinGecko. These people aren't committed to any technology. They're just trying to make money. They're not trying to improve any ecosystem. They're not trying to make things better for anyone. They're just trying to extract value where they can. So I'm really okay with, I don't really agree with people who buy in, to some of the alt layer ones. But fine, pick one, make it better, develop it, grow it, improve it, compete. It's a pet peeve of mine that I have to be ashamed to be an ETH Maxi, and I'm not. Ethereum is the future right now, and I hope it stays that way. And if it's not the future, then I'm going to go somewhere else and support another project.
So forever ago, I want you to check my thinking on this. Forever ago on Bankless, not that long ago. It was like 6 or 7 months ago, maybe less actually. I wrote a pool about like an intro. I wrote an article on Bankless titled like something about like the case for decentralized staking as a service providers, and it's basically all about Rocket Pool. And the framing that I took was just like first we had tokens on Ethereum, and then we had a need to swap tokens. So we made Ether Delta, and that got replaced by Uniswap. Uniswap's much better. And all of a sudden, Ethereum solves its own problem of like liquidity. Now, not only do we don't even actually technically need to depend on external centralized exchanges at this point for liquidity Ether. The Ether liquidity actually can come from internal to the network. So that's a really cool problem. A really cool problem to solve. It's just like, yo, we can actually have our own liquidity environment for Ether, the asset, and that's really important for the security of the network. We need Ether to be liquid. And the pitch was also about, well, Rocket Pool is just like an app layer thing on Ethereum that can solve its own like centralization issues, where instead of staking with Coinbase, you can just stake with Rocket Pool, and it's an app layer solution to some of its own centralization problems. And like in theory, which will never actually be proven out in practice, if Rocket Pool was somehow bug and exploit free, like it could just like absorb 100% of the stake, and it could just be the dominant staking as a service providers. Why am I wrong here?
It's governance centralization. It is that Rocket Pool exists as a layer on top of the staking network, and as much as you can say that they exert a tiny little bit of authority, any authority at that governance layer is a risk. And I want to talk about two reasons it's a risk. The first reason is not likely, but it is essentially Rocket Pool saying, hey guys, we have found a way to make more money. All we have to do is censor these transactions. So in our installer, we're gonna update this file. It's no big deal. Everyone run it. And because everyone who is subscribed to Rocket Pool is they're incentivized to maintain that relationship, that governance relationship with Rocket Pool, and so they're very likely to do those things without questioning. And so that's an unlikely risk, but the fact that it exists leads to the second risk. And the second risk is its governance capture. It is that entities around the world who might be interested in using Ethereum look at the network and they see this artificial governance layer that controls the beacon chain, and they say, I'm not comfortable putting my business on that chain because of the potential for one governor to control the network. And that's where the real risk is. It's not that they'll actually ever do anything. It's that third parties, nation states, corporations will examine the chain and they'll say, this is not a decentralized network. This is a network run by two operators, or I'm sorry, let me call them entities, two entities. And at that point, none of us know that. Like, we may not even be aware of it. But what happens is 5, 8, 10 years down the road, the network is stagnant and we're trying to figure out what happened. Like, why didn't we explode? Why didn't things grow? Why didn't we get adopted? Because we've turned a blind eye to our own weaknesses. And that's the thing that I really want to encourage us to avoid.
Were those two entities Dave and Darren? Is that who you're referring to? Okay.
No. I was thinking, well, I'm not even going to say what I was thinking, but I just, no comment.
Okay. Okay.
I'm like, I'm just going to dig the hole deeper.
Okay. So yeah, upon asking that question, then like Ethereum has done a very good job making sure it doesn't have token governance, right? It's not Tezos where the actual asset is on-chain governance. There's explicit no governance baked into Ether. And so if Rocket Pool just takes all the supply, even if it is maximally decentralized, it's distributing all the nodes, it still produces on-chain governance in a roundabout way via the RPL token. So we don't like that. So we definitely need multiple staking as a service providers to compete for all of this, but not have one dominate. I was talking to Hazu a while ago about like why he supported the dominant current staking as a service provider. And his answer was that like, well, the alternative is really just centralized exchanges. And so even a compromised alternative is better than if there's like, imagine if Coinbase had like 34% of this, 32% of the stake that the current dominant player has, and then also you added on the current amount that Coinbase has, then we're beyond 33%. We're in somewhere probably in like the 40% or something. And that gets really scary. And that leans into exactly what you're talking about. Where like, oh, sweet, this is called Ethereum, but it's actually Coinbase chain. We don't really want that. And so having semi-decentralized staking as a service providers is a mitigation against that. And so that was his argument as to like...
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Rather than having one semi-decentralized provider, really we're better off with a lot of providers. A lot of providers who we can ensure are not colluding. So, you know, one entity will say, if we're not running all of the validators, then Coinbase will. Well, do you know what? The moment that Coinbase gets to 32.45% of the network, or maybe it's, you know, someone in Reddit was like, well, what if, you know, Microsoft is just going to take over the chain anyway? Well, the moment Microsoft crosses a threshold, and I'm in awe of the 15% threshold that Vitalik suggested. But the moment we get to that point, that's when the community needs to say, stop, you're crossing a line. That is where layer 0 comes in. So, you know, for this one entity to say, if we're not doing it, someone else will, that's fine. Let someone else do it, because we'll deal with them as well. We will approach them the same way that we've addressed you. And that is how we enact governance as a community.
Is social shaming at the layer 0 level the strongest tool in the tool belt?
I don't want to call it shaming. I don't want to do shaming. I'm not a shamer. I'm not anti anyone. I am pro beacon chain. So, my goal for our community is to rise to a high standard and promote the beacon chain. I'm not here to shame anyone. I appreciate the work of those entities who have developed staking solutions to allow people to participate in the network. I'm not here to shame them. I'm here to promote the health of the beacon chain.
You said that you were in awe about Vitalik's 15%. Why is the 15% such a crazy number?
You know, I think it's something we all believed in the beginning. I don't know, it was a DevCon, I believe, where Vitalik is on stage saying, you know, you'll be able to validate on Ethereum from a laptop. I was taken by that. I believed that. I subscribed to it. I still subscribe to it. And so that led me to believe that the beacon chain will be comprised of, you know, hundreds of thousands of people staking from their homes on laptops. When that didn't unfold kind of as we expected, you know, we're all asking ourselves the question: what level of centralization of entity governance is acceptable? And so, you know, as Phiz, I chose 22% because it requires. So 22% meaning one entity cannot prevent finalization. It requires more than 3 entities to change finalization. So that seemed like a safe number. I floated it around, thought about it, got some feedback on it, and it felt right to me. So the community level then is 22%. Everyone was silent on that, and you know, not everyone. The Ethereum researchers were silent on that, and it leads me to think, you know, Phiz, are you on the right track? Are you following the right direction? And then, you know, a few weeks after that, Danny tweeted, you know, 33% is an attack. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe my gauge was a little off. Maybe somehow 22% is okay, but 33%, that's when we need to draw the line. And I sort of even went beyond that, and I realized that 33% is a developer kind of limit where the community will kick in at 22. And then Vitalik with his 15% message, because Vitalik is here for decentralization. He's serious. He's not looking for any of the other centralized distributed networks that we could have created. I love what Anthony Sassano says about not being a cult of personality. I'm not a cult of personality for Vitalik, but I have a heck of a lot of respect for him. And I align with his dream for a truly decentralized Ethereum network. And when Vitalik says at 15%, you should begin throttling your operation, raising prices, changing things to dissuade more deposits, I realized, this is the right way. We're on the right track. The community is doing the right thing by encouraging further decentralization.
15% makes sense to me if we're talking about thresholds here where if two entities had 15%, they still wouldn't get to the 33.3% required to prevent finalization. And so it goes from just from one entity at 22% to two entities at 15% are required. So from a threshold standpoint, that certainly makes sense. And while it's not baked into the actual protocol itself in producing, and this isn't what Vitalik wasn't promoting that either. He was saying it should be part of the community status quo. It should be part of the layer 0. He was basically referring to that if you are running a staking as a service provider, you should start price gouging. He used the words price gouging, which makes sense to me because you get to balance. If you're super successful and if you have a monopoly, you get to raise prices. You get to start to price gouge. And so this seems to naturally fit. While we were talking about one half of the equation earlier where there seems to be a convergence on one dominant winner in the staking as a service business because the best service will win out, there's the other side of that where if you are the one that's winning, you also get to increase your prices and you get to be the most lucrative. And so in theory, it'll make your token price go up a lot, but it'll make your ETH share supply go down a lot, which is kind of good. That's pretty good. Yeah. That's a good outcome.
I was impressed. We use the tools we have available, and the tool that I have available is community. Vitalik understands economics in a way that I will never understand it. And to hear him suggest an economic solution to something that other people are suggesting should be a protocol solution, it's really elegant. We have this kind of tiered approach, and it gives entities an opportunity to continue profiting, to continue lucrative profiting, to continue being highly engaged in the network, and to still be good network citizens. That's really what we want to be, are good citizens of the beacon chain.
ARBITRUM is an Ethereum Layer 2 scaling solution that's going to completely change how we use DeFi and NFTs. Over 300 projects have already deployed to ARBITRUM, and the DeFi and NFT ecosystems are growing rapidly. Some of the coolest and newest NFT collections have chosen ARBITRUM as their home, all the while DeFi protocols continue to see increased usage and liquidity. Using ARBITRUM has never been easier, especially with the ability to deposit directly into ARBITRUM through all the exchanges, including Binance, FTX, Huobi, and Crypto.com. Once inside, you'll notice ARBITRUM increases Ethereum speed by orders of magnitude for a fraction of the cost of the average gas fee. If you're a developer who wants low gas fees and instant transactions for your users, visit arbitrum.io/developer to start building your dApp on ARBITRUM. If you're a degen, many of your favorite dApps on Ethereum are already on ARBITRUM, with many moving over every day. Go to bridge.arbitrum.io now to start bridging over your ETH and other tokens in order to experience DeFi and NFTs in the way it was always meant to be: fast, cheap, secure, and friction-free. The Layer 2 era is upon us. Ethereum's Layer 2 ecosystem is growing every day, and we need bridges to be fast and efficient in order to live a Layer 2 life. Across is the fastest, cheapest, and most secure cross-chain bridge. With Across, you don't have to worry about the long wait times or high fees to get your assets to the chain of your choice. Assets are bridged and available for use almost instantaneously. Across bridges are powered by UMA's optimistic oracle to securely transfer tokens from Layer 2 back to Ethereum. A token proposal is being deliberated as we speak in the Across forum, where community members will decide on the token distribution. You can have your part of Across's story by joining the Discord and becoming a co-founder and helping to design the fair launch of Across. If you want to bridge your assets quickly and securely, go to across.to to bridge your assets between Ethereum, Optimism, Arbitrum, or Boba networks. The Brave browser is the user-first browser for the Web3 internet, with over 50 million monthly active users. Control your digital footprint with built-in privacy and ad blocking. Inside the Brave browser, you'll find the Brave Wallet, the first secure crypto wallet built natively inside of a Web3 crypto browser. Web3 is freedom from big tech and Wall Street, more control and better privacy. But there's a weak point in Web3, your crypto wallet. The Brave Wallet is different. Brave Wallet is built natively inside the Brave browser, no extension required, which gives the Brave Wallet an extra level of security versus other wallets. With the Brave Wallet, you can buy, store, send, and swap your crypto assets, and you can even manage your NFTs and connect to other wallets and DeFi apps, all from the security of the best privacy browser on the market. Whether you're new to crypto or a seasoned pro, it's time to switch to the Brave Wallet. Download Brave at brave.com/bankless and click the wallet icon to get started. Part of the game that we're playing with Ethereum and with like promoting decentralization is to ensure that our kids can also play that game. And so you were talking about, and also our kids' kids and our kids' kids. And earlier you were talking about like putting monetary incentives ahead of responsibility. And if everyone puts monetary incentives ahead of responsibility, then we remove the ability for our kids to play this game. Because we put money in front of responsibility, what happens as a result is that, well, the network becomes corrupted, and then it stops being the network that we all want it to be. And then no longer can our kids play in this like fun times land, which is JPEGs and DeFi and staking, which is Ethereum. And so like the word like responsibility I've like has always like struck out as if like if you don't know what to do in the world, you find something that you can be responsible for. And then that gives you like the long-term iterative game because like you're promoting the ability to make sure that that game is continued to be able to be played by yourself and then also by others.
Yeah, I wholly subscribe to that. Like I work sometimes to diminish my perspectives of responsibility on the chain because so many people who would argue with me say, it's about financial incentives. Stop talking about responsibility. I don't subscribe to that. I have a responsibility to the chain, to steward it, to help it be healthy, to steward the community. For me, and I hope for others, this extends beyond financial incentives and into dreams for the future. Like, I don't think of Ethereum as a financial chain anymore. I think of Ethereum as the foundational layer for our shared future. And I don't know what that shared future is going to look like yet. I think that decentralized society is going to be a big part of it. But I'm so excited about the future of what Ethereum can be that I'm done worrying about how much money I'm going to make, and I'm more focused on how I can steward this growth into something that benefits humanity. It's a better goal for all of us.
Right. You said, I'm done thinking about how much money I can make, but then you said what you said, but in my mind, I hear how much value can we create for others? Like, I'm done getting mine. Other people still need to get theirs, and we need to make sure that the maximum amount of value can be created for others to be shared.
I don't want to be disingenuous. I rely on Ethereum for money. I want to be financially successful. I'm not above that. But within that, there's so much potential, so much opportunity to give back. You know what it leads to is being a value extractor versus adding value. And my personal philosophy for anything that I engage with is to add more value than I extract. I think if every Ethereum, and I'm not talking about people who think they're investing, they're really just extracting value. If every real Ethereum worked to add more value than they extract, they would find that they would grow old happy, because they would watch the fruition of Ethereum. It would become something that's beyond their wildest dreams, and their financial needs would be met as well.
How do you see? Do you think about like the similarities between what you do with being a psychological counselor for kids in a middle school with what you do with Beacon Chain? Like, can you parse out those parallels?
Yeah, so much of it. Middle school is where I learned to build consensus. It's like it. So consensus really is, in my mind, it is first polling and listening. Like, what are the different interests here at the table? And then it's kind of like distilling that to let's find one principle we can all agree on. And then instead of dumping that on the table, you go to individuals and you say, hey, David, I have this idea. I just wanted to run it past you. And I see if you can get buy-in. Can I get buy-in with you? Hey, David, I'm thinking about, let's host 6 merge calls. Is that something you're interested in? Do you want to do that? Hey, do you want to do that? Great. So you get that buy-in with individuals, and then once you have that buy-in with individuals, you go back to the group and you say, hey, everyone, I've been thinking about this. What do you guys think? And so I polled everyone. I had individual conversations with the majority of the people, and then I put it out for public view. And that, to me, that's the consensus building that I learned from honestly dealing with 7th graders who like to fight about everything. Like, that's how it works.
Isn't that just politics?
Maybe. I don't. I could never imagine myself as a politician. You know what? No. Politics tend to be self-serving. Every politician that I'm aware of, I don't trust many politicians. They're all thinking, what's my piece of the pie in this? Where's my slice at?
Okay, never mind. Is that just governance in that case?
Yes.
Because like politics is like this layer, this gamified layer on top of governance, where like we should be talking about just like and we use the word politics when we talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill, when we should be using the word governance. Like politics is like the game of chess that people play around governance.
Yeah. So I've grown away from the idea of governance, and I'm much more comfortable with the idea of consensus, because governance is a game in many ways. And I'm not playing games. I'm looking for ideas that people can gravitate toward. Maybe that if you took a pure definition of governance, it would probably be ideas that people can gravitate toward. But the word it's been through so much that it now carries baggage, and it's kind of a less pure word. But consensus is still a reflection of ideas that people can gravitate toward.
So going back to some of the questions from our EthFinance community, and this one's about Bankless. Just another position. Oh, wow, great name. She goes, to hit David Hoffman, David Hoffman, that's me, between the eyes with love, what should Bankless be doing to better support decentralization?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, that was you.
No, this is great. Like, we've had some rounds, right? The thing that you can do to better support decentralization is encourage people to stake from home first. If they can stake from home, have them stake from home. Bankless, you've developed David, you guys have an awesome network. I'm in awe of Bankless. Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
You can use that network to train people and help people get staking in their home if they have 32 Ether. You can also support minority staking solutions. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Rocket Pool. I don't promote Rocket Pool because I'm pumping bags. I promote Rocket Pool because it's currently the most healthy way to stake on the network. If Rocket Pool reaches 15%, and that's based on Vitalik's number, then I'm gonna definitely steer toward another solution. But right now, Rocket Pool is a solution where anyone with 16 Ether can stake, and then anybody with you can use Uniswap or whatever to also stake through Rocket Pool. I think Bankless is the most powerful platform in Ethereum. You are the most powerful educator in Ethereum. That gives you a tremendous responsibility to kind of get this good message out, like how to be a good network steward.
I think one of the reasons why we haven't totally leaned into that, because we don't have any technical person on Bankless, and so explaining the technical stuff kind of gets away from us. And so especially when we are onboarding so many people, we're like, oh yeah, you can stake your ETH with this staking as a service provider, and then all the Bitcoiners are like, that's just delegated proof of stake with extra steps, but which is also a little bit of the vibe that's going on here, is just it is delegated proof of stake if you choose the largest staking provider. And so maybe there's some tiers to talk about this. And I do stake ETH on a node that's not at my home. And so I don't do it with a delegated staking as a service provider, but I've delegated it to someone.
He's a good man too. Love that guy.
And so maybe the tiers go is you stake your ETH at home with your own node, with your own ETH. Then if next best thing is find a friend, stake it with them. Next best thing is find the most minority staking as a service providers. And then beyond that, maybe is where you have to stop recommending anything. How would you agree with that degree of help?
Yeah, that's good. I see two roles there, and this may be an oblique response to your question, but while your base Bankless DAO may not be technically savvy enough to support all of the users, they are technically savvy enough to create content, and a lot of times you can have one technical user create content that can be reused for thousands of non-technical users to benefit from it. And so that is one way. The next way is really just continuing that education of helping people understand the responsibility that comes with staking. And so staking from home, staking with a minority client, really just thinking through, what does decentralization mean? Looking at resources like ethsunshine.com and saying, it's tough for me to look at ethsunshine.com. Have you looked at it? It shows we have something like 54% network health. I like to see success, but by seeing our weakness, by acknowledging our weakness, it gives us a place to grow from, and that's a platform we can share.
All right, so it sounds like I need to put a bounty out for a technical explanation, but also it's been a while since I've spun up a node, and so maybe I should do a 2022 version of this, and I'll turn that into a video. But then also, if I could get some help from the Bankless DAO, that'd be great, because I know you got some technical gigabrains in there. Superphiz, are there any other topics or conversation you want to get to before I want to get to some more fun personal conversations?
Well, I want to ask, I wanted to give you the mantle of realizing that Bankless is in a unique position to influence the future of Ethereum, and I think you know that. That's why it's so important that uh, that you maximize the opportunity to build this layer zero, to decentralize Ethereum. Um, and I think you get it. Like,
Yeah,
I think
we,
you're
we,
ready
we
for it.
totally get it. I think the fight that we've been fighting over the last year is less about like internal problems, because I do think that Ethereum has this like fantastic autoimmune system. And so when there is an internal problem, there hasn't been an internal problem that Ethereum hasn't solved yet. And so that's kind of why I haven't put too much thought and energy into this particular part of Ethereum's history. Because like in the future, hopefully in the future, like a year from now, 2 years from now, this is just one of many problems that Ethereum was faced with and then solved. Like Ethereum is yet to be trumped by a problem. And it comes from the layer zero. It comes from like this autoimmune response that we have when, as a community, we actually do care about this stuff. Like we actually do care about promoting decentralization. Of all communities out there, like it's one of the few communities that actually gets it. Right. And I don't have to explain why we need decentralization and to illustrate to people that decentralization also really just means corruption resistance, and we would like to have like uncorruptible systems. And so like the fight that we've been fighting for the mostly through 2021 is like trying to resist against centralized chains, because that it wasn't really the more centralized staking as a service providers that were the real threat to Ethereum. It was like narrative attacks from centralized chains. Like you think it's bad if some like centralized service provider only has a handful of nodes. Well, what about an entire chain? And so a lot of people were talking about like, oh, well, it's this chain that's like going to be the new thing, and it's going to this chain is going to be the thing that kills Ethereum. And so like that's been our fight for like the last 18 months or so, maybe a little bit less than that. And frankly, like it was absolutely exhausting. And just like going up against these communities while the token price is going up and up and up is just like you're going against, it feels like an immovable object, which is Bankless about decentralization, going against an unstoppable force, which is like Sol, AVAX, Terra price, Luna price going up into the moon, right? And like it sucked for a really long time, dude. And like finally, like we're actually able to like kind of cash in on some of that like credibility for actually like
we called
fighting,
it.
promoting, like not necessarily like trying to say like, hey, like this Terra thing, not necessarily sustainable. You guys should be careful. And so like that was our big fight, is like not necessarily internal Ethereum strifes, because like I said, like Ethereum has done a fantastic job, like never really has like left a big problem go unsolved. And so we've kind of, especially when like most of our community is, it's not necessarily like, why won't you talk about Rocket Pool? It's like, why aren't you talking about my centralized L1? And so like teaching about like decentralization from the external standpoint to get them into the Ethereum community in the first place has kind of been like Bankless's fight for the last like year or so. And so for like the Rocket Pool community that's out there is like, why aren't you guys caring about the health of the network? It's like, yo, we care about the health of the industry. Like it's you guys that care about the health of the network, because we'll pass the baton on to you guys.
That's really honorable. I couldn't have articulated your fight unless you described it to me. And now that you've described it to me, even though, I catch a lot of Bankless. I don't listen every day, but I love the roll-ups and I love, so much of your work. But I couldn't have articulated your battle like you just did. And when you like, this is the thing I've been working on for 18 months. This is kind of where I'm at. You're pretty successful. It's pretty impressive. I have the same kind of like, I worked on client or consensus layer client diversity. That it was a successful successful initiative. The current initiative is the entity size debate. Like that for me, I hope it doesn't take a long time. Like it does get exhausting, like being the person who's beating the drum about one thing that needs to get done. And then I would say the next initiative for layer zero is the execution layer diversity. And it's interesting. I believe ETH researchers are ready to do execution layer diversity now, but I don't believe we can successfully fight on all of those fronts at once. And so the sooner we get the entity size thing worked out, the next Monday, I'm going to say, all right, guys, let's do execution layer diversity. And I'm not sure how many people could articulate those initiatives that I know, the same way that I don't know how many people could articulate the initiatives that you're working on. But they're there. Like they're really real things.
Right. And as we go into the bear market, like it does present us with an opportunity to reflect on like, all right, what are the next big problems that we have to tackle? Because more or less the crypto industry and every single chain, and especially Ethereum being the biggest chain with the most to lose, has to like turn and face and be like, all right, what's the next big problem? What's the next big problem? What's the next big problem? And then ultimately it's going to be like that for like years. And it has been like that for years, ever since Genesis. Slowly those problems get like longer in time and not as a big of a deal, but like we're still not anywhere close to the end of this whole thing. But as we're going into the bear market and like a lot of the energy has evaporated out of the alternative layer 1 space, mainly because the tokens are down bad. Like it does actually give a moment to like look more internally rather than externally. And I think like looking externally is for bull markets, looking internally is for bear markets. Yeah. And so like I do think that this is a moment to like turn away from the external world and more towards addressing the problems for the internal world. So I do take the point that like now is definitely the time for like Bankless to start beating the drum about decentralization in a different direction. So I do definitely take that point.
I do. So I have to acknowledge, I took a long position on Ether because it's Hal Press did it to me. So maybe I should blame you.
Dude, during that podcast, I opened up my Gemini app and I just like 2x my daily buy price.
Can I tell you? I was on a multi-day travel listening to Hal Press. I stopped at a gas station, turned on my mobile hotspot, went to DeFi Saver, and leveraged long because. And now probably not Superphiz, but it was just so compelling. Like I like how do you hear that and not just want to risk your position? But what I was going to say is
I took an ETH chain that we shall not name short position. So not in dollar terms, but like put ETH in a compound, borrowed the asset that shall not be named, sold the asset for ETH, and then put more ETH in compound. So I'm like longing the ratio, like capital efficient way to trade the ratio, and then but also not be exposed to like macro markets, which is a nice thing to not be exposed to at the moment.
Yeah, this is where. Again, I normalize being normal. I'm not great with economics, so I don't allow myself to attempt those arbitrages. But I'm always impressed.
I just listen to other people and be like, well, he's smart and bullish, so I will follow that.
Are you familiar with this? The Logri. He has a name for this because it's on his Tokenomics Explained. It's the Logri double something. But it's. So I want you to look it up, and I'm sure commenters will point it out because it's really interesting. But I'm like, I could never pull that off. Like I don't even know what buttons to click to make that happen. But I don't know. You'll have to check that out though. It's really impressive. One of the things I was trying to get to a minute ago, and I derailed my own self.
No, I did it.
Oh, I think that we're likely to view. Oh, Hal Press did it. I blame Hal for everything. I think we're likely to view what we consider to be the incoming bear market as an L1 cleansing. I would kind of like to think of it as a big L1 cleansing, and there's going to be.
I call it the bear market wash cycle.
Well, there's going to be something new after this, and I don't know what it's going to be, but. We always have after these manias. We have an L1 mania. We had an ICO mania. We had an NFT mania. There's going to be another mania, and I'm just curious, like, after we move past L1s, after we're proof of stake, I'm excited to just see the next mania unfold. It'll be fun.
Yeah. It always happens. I remember going through the bear market of 2018 to 2020 thinking like, oh, everyone talks about how crypto goes in cycles. And so like, sweet, there will just be another cycle. And then I thought, well, if everyone's saying that there's another cycle, isn't that like the crowded trade? Like, if that's the consensus bet, I thought markets do the things that people don't expect them to do, and everyone thinks that another cycle's coming. So maybe it's another cycle's not coming, and then another cycle totally came. And now I'm on the like now that we're one more cycle beyond that, I'm like, oh, there's how big is the crypto world? Like it's still only like 1% of like global population that are in like the crypto world. And so like we could have like 3 more cycles for as far as I can tell. And so like it could actually just keep on playing out consensus over consensus until like the cycles do actually disappear and it's just like up only, but modestly for a very long time.
I love the predictability of these cycles. Like even my wife, who has zero interest in Ether, she's like, I've said, hey, we're going to tighten up a little bit because there's a bear coming, and it's going to be a few years. It's no big deal. And her response is, well, so it's going to go back up. Just tell me how long it's going to be. And I'm like, well, that's the part I don't know, but I love that.
Well,
that
Hal
even
Press says,
yeah, call Hal. I hope that dude's right, because I've never been. So he's anyway. We could talk about Hal Press. Just such high signal with such common sense. Like again, I listen to a lot of investors speak, and it just doesn't resonate with me. But so much of what he said, especially with the concept of trying to of supply trying to suppress the price rather than push it up, I'm like, damn, that really that's right.
Right. You mentioned your wife. Does your wife feel like she shares you with Ethereum?
No, my wife feels like Ethereum owns me, and she gets to borrow me. She will say, how much do I even listen for meals? She's like, you come out for meals. So it's a balance that I really need to work on.
I think it's a balance, like balancing a crypto in all of our lives is like something I think everyone resonates with. So you are not alone in that fight, brother.
It's hilarious because I'm always like, but honey, I'm working on this thing right now. It's a big deal to me. It's really important. So it was just the CLR grants round. I'm like, this grants round is going to be over in 3 days, and then I'll be back. And she's like, do you hear yourself? And I'm like, yeah, I'll be back in 3 days. She's like, you said that 2 weeks ago, and you said it 3 weeks before that, and you're still gone. And I'm like, so yeah, it is maybe one of my biggest weaknesses. Something I would love to get right.
Yeah, no, I fight the same fight. It's just like Ethereum is so rich. There's so many interesting people to talk about so many interesting things with. So no, I'm pretty sure every single person I've had on this podcast is like, oh yeah, that sounds about right. The other personal question I have.
Sorry.
Yeah. The other personal question I have is, where did Superphiz come from?
It's not all that exciting. I have this buddy. So this guy called Corey was Soda Pop Phiz on AOL Instant Messenger back in like 1995. And then a buddy of mine, Ben Dorf, set up a server called Phiz as a short, because he was like, hey, I need a name. And then I used that server very often. And when I was fishing for, I need I've cycled through thousands, probably 100 usernames. And that was just the flavor of the day. I didn't know that Superphiz would like catch on. It's so funny. Like I can still log into my old other community accounts, and they're fun. But Superphiz is my committed personality now.
Does the Rocket Pool / EthFinance community know your actual name?
It's not a secret, but because this is what I do, like I am Phiz more than I am my IRL persona.
The alternative. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this weird way, I have become more comfortable being Phiz than hearing my real name spoken. And I know that's odd. There was a transition period, but I'm more likely to respond to being called Phiz than my real name.
Interesting. Have you ever accidentally, like in real life, introduced yourself? Hey, I'm Superphiz.
No, we don't. Real life.
It's the correct answer.
Yeah, we're still very COVID careful, even though it is what it is. I haven't met a lot of new people in real life in a while. So I'm really looking for. We have a 3-year-old who isn't vaccinated yet, and so when he gets vaccinated, I look forward to getting out in the world again.
Yeah, and I'll see you DevCon. Maybe TBD. All right. One last question for you.
Bogota did not go over well.
Fair enough. Here's a question which I've kind of rephrased from Richard G. What's your favorite thing to do with $13,000?
The stoner cats, and it's so funny. Like, I think of myself as an amalgam, or maybe like an archetype of an Ethereum community member. And I think that Ethereum community members should play with a protocol. Like, we should play. And he's referencing Stoner Cats, and there's a Jonathan Mann Song a Day Man song about the Stoner Cats debacle, where I was just screwing around and I wanted a Stoner Cat, so I went to MetaMask and just set the gas to some crazy number, and I burned five ETH in gas on a failed transaction for a Stoner Cat. Which, if you look, not even, what is it, like 2 weeks ago, we had that land sale, and people paid, people paid like tens of ETH for gas for that, and it was nothing. But we weren't there yet. It wasn't normal yet.
And did you end up getting refunded? Did they give money back?
They did, and I actually, so there are two sides to that. Jonathan Mann's song, I guess I ended up with that song, and then ETH account bought that song, ETHACCT bought that song for me for 5.82 ETH, and he holds it now. And then I got a refund from Stoner Cats, but I didn't feel comfortable like getting a double rebate, so I donated that to HodlerCon, which is the trip to Hawaii, as their seed money. So HodlerCon, the trip to Hawaii, I'm so sad that I can't go to that. I think it's just going to be awesome.
Oh, you can't go?
Vaccinations, can't fly. Our son can't fly, and so we stick together, and we'll have another trip in 2 years.
Well, you'll just have to recruit someone to carry around an iPad so you can come around on the iPad.
Yeah, I know, right? It's a thing that people don't know. I don't always manifest this in my online interactions, but my family is my priority, and I love that. I've chosen that. I'm always going to put my family above Ethereum. And other Ethereans, they think they're first in my life, and I love them. Like, they're my family. They're my online family. But at the end of the day, my family is my priority, and I love that. I love my family relationship, my family dynamic. And you guys are just my second family.
Well, you're the most dad-looking guest I've had on this show, so it's very, very.
Wait, is that a compliment? I don't know what that was. Thanks.
I don't know if it's a compliment or it's not either. It's just like you look like a dad. Awesome, Superphiz. Any last topics you want to touch on before we wrap this up?
I have loved syncing up with you. I love what you're doing with Bankless. I love, our community is so valuable. I don't. It's not the number. It has nothing to do with the number. But the Ethereum community is so rich and vibrant, and a lot of that is due to what Bankless does. And so I love you guys for that. So thanks for your contributions.
No, thanks, my man. I like to say it's like all Bankless is doing is reverberating Ethereum values louder to the rest of the world. So it's not like we invented anything new. I mean, we invented the Bankless brand and made some good podcasts and some good articles, but basically it's just a tool for amplifying Ethereum values. And so at the end of the day, it's all layer zero.
Yeah. Do you know the neat thing is there's no other Bankless. You know, like every time anytime someone's critical of Bankless, I'm like, could you do that? Why don't you do that? We need more of that. Why don't you do that? I will subscribe if you do that. And they get quiet really quickly because the energy and skill that you put into this is so unparalleled that there's nothing else like it.
And thanks, my man. Yeah, part of the reasons why I joke that there's no other Bankless is just because anytime we come up with another podcast idea, we just take it and run with it. Yeah. And so we end up putting like 5 podcasts out a week and 5 newsletters a week. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, Phiz, thank you for coming on and sharing your brain on Layer Zero.
It was so great to hang out with you, David. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Hey, we hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, head over to Bankless HQ right now to develop your crypto investing skills and learn how to free yourself from banks and gain your financial independence. We recommend joining our daily newsletter, podcast, and community as a Bankless Premium subscriber to get the most out of your Bankless experience. You'll get access to our market analysis, our alpha leaks, and exclusive content, and even the Bankless token for airdrops, raffles, and unlocks. If you're interested in crypto, the Bankless community is where you want to be. Click the link in the description to become a Bankless Premium subscriber today. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for in-depth interviews with industry leaders, Ask Me Anythings, and weekly roll-ups where we summarize the week in crypto and other fantastic content. Thanks everyone for watching and being on the journey as we build out the Bankless Nation.